Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Going Live with Global Science Show. My name is Sam Langford. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder and coordinator of the Global Science Show, the monthly virtual science festival that allows science communicators, scientists of all ages and all backgrounds to share a little slice of science with you, wherever you are in the world. Hello to the people that are already watching live. It's such a good so welcome to have you here. Look, it's coffee number 3. I'm going to get stuck on my words today. It's the mug of motivation day today as well, because I really need that in order to get through today. For those of you who've not joined us before, we've got a half an hour chat lined up with a science communicator. We're going to find out who they are, what they do, and why they're awesome. You can join in as well. You can retweet and like if you're watching on Twitter. You can leave comments on Periscope or on YouTube. You might be watching on Twitch. I highly doubt it, but you might be. And if you're watching back later, hello as well. So I'm going to get our guest into the room. I'm in Glasgow, for those people who don't know me, in Glasgow in Scotland, and we're going just over the border, like as close as you can get to Scotland without actually being in Scotland. We're going to meet Ellie Macdonald. So say hello to Ellie. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good. I am also on coffee number 3, which means I'm beginning to shake a little bit, which tells me I should stop.
Is 3 maybe like the max that you can manage in a day?
Absolutely not, no. But I'm be going for coffee 4 and 5 after this. It's a busy day, so.
No, I know exactly that feeling. Thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us today. It's an absolute delight to have you here.
Thank you for having me on.
So the first thing that I ask people is, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Ellie Macdonald, and I'm a science communicator, and I work within astronomy and astrophysics outreach. So I'm based at Kielder Observatory, which, as you said, is as close to Scotland as you can get without being in Scotland. We're literally just over the border. Right next to the remotest village in England, which is Kielder Village, in one of the largest dark sky parks in Europe as well. So we're a public observatory at Kielder Observatory, and we run events and outreach, and we go into schools and all of that lovely good stuff. And that's what I do. That's who I am.
So, like you mentioned a phrase that I always love to explore. What is a dark sky park?
So it's a dedicated area of land where basically light pollution is managed. Really. So all over England, you can look at maps from the ISS and you can see all these areas of like brightness and light and stuff like that coming from cities and villages. And in a dark sky park, what you do is you basically say you're not allowed those lights. And so you try and black it out so that you've got a nice sky above you that's free of light pollution, so you can see all the stars, because it's amazing like what you see when there's no light there. I think there was a study on it, and I think there's about 80% of people in England haven't seen the Milky Way. And all you need to do to see it is turn the lights off, really.
I've never seen it, and at some point I really want to go down to the Galloway Dark Sky Park as well, which is like not too far away from you are, and like quite accessible for me, to actually have a look up and see those amazing things. But like, how have you spent your pandemic? It's like different time to be doing astronomy outreach and engagement.
Yeah, so everything's very different. So in the first sort of lockdown, we were fully furloughed. So I spent that lockdown mostly reading and watching TV, to be honest. But we've been sort of semi-working, semi-not working in this lockdown. And so what I've been doing is a lot of online events, really. So I've ran talks for the University of the Third Age, and I'm doing a talk for Newcastle Students' Union soon as well. So doing online talks and also doing live streams. So something that we've had to learn how to do as an organisation is run a live stream. And what we do is we put a camera onto a telescope and we stream live images when we can, obviously, weather-wise. And it's, very different.
So what sorts of things would you be showing people then? Is that going to be like the constellations you can see? Can that come across in a live stream? Or is it like the moon and the planets? Or
it can be difficult to show constellations, because if you want to show constellations, you have to use a camera that shows you the whole sky, and the quality is never really good enough to pick up a lot of detail, to be honest. So mostly we show people things through the telescope. So stars in constellations, we'll show them galaxies a lot of the time, because that's always exciting. But it depends on the night. So the moon is beautiful and lovely, but when the moon's out, you can't see anything other than the moon. It's so bright. So if it's a moony night, we'll just sort of sit on the moon and we'll talk about craters, and we'll talk about lunar Maria, so lunar seas and dark patches on the moon and light patches and what they are. And we'll sort of, on a nice dark night instead, we'll show them nebulas, galaxies, and occasionally like globular clusters of stars that are just sort of all lumped together. So it's always very much, it depends on the night, and it changes very quickly as well with the weather. So you can imagine we get a lot of cloud at Kielder.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like if it's anything like where I am, yeah, quite a lot of cloud and like the light pollution, like you can hardly see anything. In terms of galaxies, what sorts of ones do we see? Like I know that is it Andromeda? Is that like that's the closest galaxy to us, right?
Yeah, so Andromeda's the closest to us, and it always looks good. So if we've got like the cameras on and we've got the telescope focused on Andromeda, what you can make out through the camera is you can make out like spiral arms and stuff like that. It's actually surprising how much detail you can get. One of the best galaxies actually to see through a telescope using a camera and on our live streams is probably the whirlpool. So the whirlpool, it's a spiral galaxy, but it's like front on, so you can see like all the arms spiraling around it. And it's got such crisp detail and it's amazing. And there's a little interacting galaxy next to it. And so spiral arms like come around and swirl into the interacting galaxy.
That sounds great. What was the name? Like again?
Whirlpool.
Whirlpool. Okay, I'm gonna go and have to look it up and see if it's something I can spot. So obviously you've said about things changing and whatnot in terms of astronomy engagement. Has it obviously like the way in which we engage has changed, but has that led to like wider audiences being able to participate and getting people participating in Kielder events that they might not have done before the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, and that's something that I've loved. Like obviously, I don't love the pandemic, but it's something I've loved that's come out of it. It's a happy surprise, I guess. But we've just been able to engage more and more people, because the thing about Kielder is it's so remote. It can be quite difficult for people to get there. So like you need to have time off work, you need to have access to a car because we don't have any buses that run by or anything like that. So it can be quite difficult for people to get to us. But being able to go online, it means we've got this whole new audience that's all over sort of the country. It's all over the world. So we've done live streams and we sort of asked people where they are, and they're like, oh, I'm about to board a boat, I'm in Turkey. And it's amazing like how far you reach with that. And we've got people who are saying sort of they would never have known about the observatory except they came across the live stream, and like now they really want to come up and they want to see it for themselves. So it's been a really fantastic way to engage like a whole new audience and hopefully inspire a couple new people to sort of start getting back into science, to be honest, because our audience is about, we go into schools and we do all that lovely stuff trying to talk to children. But I think the most surprising thing that we always find is people who are adults or maybe older, get retired, they come up to the observatory and they'll sort of say, you know, I was never interested in science at school, but I've come up here and it's really inspired me to go home and read more about it and learn more. And it's always lovely to see that.
That's like that's impact, isn't it? Like that's just like a really, really cool thing to see.
Yeah.
And obviously like having access to that kind of wider audience that might never have engaged. I know you can't speak for the whole of Kielder, but does it seem like that might be something that like the organization wants to keep going forward because it allows you to have that audience reach?
Yeah, I think especially now that we figured out how to run these sort of live streams and events online, it's something the team generally are quite passionate about keeping going, because we want to be able to deliver that, you know, experience and that sort of drive and that inspiration to people, even if they can't get up to see us, because we recognize that we're quite remote and we're quite difficult to get to for some people. And so it's something we definitely want to keep going. And we've got loads of projects coming up that are all about trying to keep going with this sort of front and trying to produce new programs and events and stuff that we can continue to deliver to wider and wider audiences.
Well, that's really good too. It's really good when you hear that's like the plans going forward. I know there's a lot of kind of science outreach organizations that are trying to move towards that, like science centers and museums and observatories as well, that are like trying to maintain that interest that they've built as a consequence, but in a really good way from the pandemic. So I know that's really, really good to hear. I just fingers crossed, because it's hard as well.
Yes.
To have that digital offer, that in-person offer, and even like a hybrid offer as well, like something that brings the two together.
Yeah, it's very difficult, particularly because we're not a very big organization and we're not a big team. I mean, there's I think 6 of us on the science team, and then a couple of people who helped out in the office with administration and stuff like that. We're not a big team, and most of the time when we're running events, we're doing events every night, and so that's where all of our focus goes. So I think it's going to be difficult for us to find that balance and find that time to do both well, but hopefully we get there.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we see like funding coming from the big funders to say, let's build on this and allow organizations to really take this and run with it. And like whether that is like expanding the teams that people have in order to have like a hybrid offer.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we'll see where that goes. How long have you been with Kielder?
So I've been with them for coming up to 2 years now. So I joined literally before I graduated. I had to take a weekend off after I started to go graduate. So I've been working for just about 2 years, but obviously about half of that has been this. Only about half of that was actually working up at Kielder. So it's a bit weird with that in that mind. But coming up to 2 years now, and it's been fantastic. It was a fantastic job to find straight out of university. I was incredibly lucky that it came up when it did.
Yeah, no, like jobs like that are like one in a million, really, aren't they? And like that's an amazing position to be in, like coming straight from uni as well. So how did you make that kind of decision that that's what you wanted to do? Like, how did you get into science communication?
Well, it's a bit of a long story. It's a bit of a winding tale. But back when I was at university, so I was originally on the 4-year integrated master's course at Warwick, and I studied maths and physics down there. And so I was in university. I fully intended to do the classic integrated master's into a PhD into research. That's what I always intended to do. But unfortunately, towards the end of my first year, my mum passed away. And it was right at the end of my first year, but it was right in that exam period. And if I was smart at that point, I would have taken a year out. Like, in retrospect, that's what I should have done. But I didn't do that. I had this image in my mind that I had to push through, and I had to just get through the degree, get through the PhD, and get into what I wanted to do. But it really distracted me at university after that had happened, and it kept coming up, obviously, year after year, right in exam period. And I couldn't focus, and as a result, my grades were sort of slipping and stuff like that. And so I made the decision at the end of the second year that like this wasn't going to work for me, not at the moment anyway. I had to take a break. So I moved on to the 3-year course. And part of the 3-year course is it was mandatory to take a module in science communication. They're talking about how you communicate science and the different ways you can do it and how you tailor to audiences. And I think that's what I realized. Like, I realized then during that module, I was like, this is great. This is what I like to do. And sort of looking back, I was like, well, that's obvious, because my favorite thing to do in the world is to talk to people about science. Every time we would go out to like the pub, I'd corner someone and be talking to them about physics. And that's what I was passionate about. And I was like, I want to do this, and I want this to be my career. And so I started looking for jobs. And it's really difficult to find science communication jobs in physics specifically. There's not a whole lot of them about. But luckily, the Kielder one came up and had been posted sort of just a couple of weeks before I started looking, to be honest. So I sort of went, what's the worst that can happen? They can say no to me. And they didn't, which is fantastic for me.
It's like a really nice kind of ending to that story. It's like a really not many people will end up in this sort of situation either, like being able to find a role like that. So like that's absolutely incredible.
It was such a stroke of like just fantastic luck.
It's
to be honest.
like, this is going to sound really cheesy, but it's like the stars aligned for it, wasn't it? Like, just everything fell into place at the right time. You mentioned Warwick actually, and we've had Phil Gemmett on to have a chat with us recently, who's one of the public engagement fellows at the University of Warwick, and it seems like as a university, they seem to put a lot of effort into public engagement and science communication. So what sorts of things did you have to do during that module on science communication?
So there were sort of like 5 coursework tasks that you would do, and you were basically given like 5 different audiences, and it'd be like produce a leaflet on a topic for GCSE audiences, do an article for general audience, produce a poster on a past Nobel Prize work for a university undergraduate audience. So it was all about introducing you to like the different ways you can communicate science. There was a presentation thing as well, which funnily enough was my worst assignment, and now it's just what I do as a job. But it was all these different ways that you can communicate science they tried to introduce you to, and they gave you a different audience each time with like a different level of ability, and marked on how well you communicated your topic to that audience ability. And it was really good.
It's really good having that sort of experience to build up, because for some people it can be really hard to find the ways to build those skills and to figure out what's the best way for them to take forward any sort of communication they want to do. So that's awesome that Warwick do that.
Yeah, I think it was probably key to me getting this job, actually, because without that module I wouldn't have had any like experience really that I could show of science communication, because at Warwick I had been heavily involved with the Physics Society anyway. I was sort of treasurer of the Physics Society, so I was always really involved with facilitating science communication, actually. So I was setting up events and inviting speakers, and I was helping out with gala events for younger kids and all of that great stuff. But I hadn't actually been doing any of the science communication. I just sort of been helping other people to do it and to deliver it. And so this sort of module was my first chance to really get involved with science communication. And I think it's probably why I got the job, why I even got like my foot in the door.
It's really good. No, that's like so impressive that that's like a thing that's offered and that it actively has had an impact on you to be able to go forward.
And it was mandatory as well, and I think that's really great, because I think what Warwick recognised was if you're not doing 4-year course, if you're leaving after 3 years, you're probably going into some sort of like industry position, or you're probably going to need to be able to effectively communicate your science to other people and to a more general audience. So I think it was really great that they recognised that and they provided you some training for it.
Yeah, that's like, you need that sort of buy-in, don't you? Like people that are going to make sure that that happens for people. And yeah, having it as a mandatory thing just means that people have that opportunity, even if they wouldn't have self-selected to do it. It's really, really good. So no, really impressed with that. But you said that one of the things that you always enjoyed most whenever it came to like going to the pub and talking to someone about physics was talking about the science.
Yes.
And now you spend your time engaging the public with astronomy. Like what do you enjoy most about doing public engagement with astronomy?
It's the reactions you get from astronomy. So obviously all those times back in the pub when I'd corner someone and talk to them about science, usually I'd be talking to them about like a physics thing, which was, I thought, fascinating, but I'm sure they thought it was quite boring. But astronomy, it's just interesting to everyone. It's so wonderful, and it's so visual that it means like people, they see things, they see what you're talking about, and they can sort of connect the two dots together, and the reactions you get from it. So it's always my favorite part of any event when we're stargazing is the moment like somebody first looks through the telescope and the eyepiece and they just go, wow. Like they don't know what they're going to see, but when they see it, they're just amazed and blown away. And you get some fantastic reactions as well. So I'd say my favorite reactions come from the very young and the very old. So we've had loads of sort of retired people who come up and they'll be like, oh, my eyesight's terrible, I don't think I'll see anything. And you sort of try and assure them, no, you will, don't worry. But if they don't believe it until they get there and they look through it and they see a galaxy and they're like, amazing, I've never seen anything like this before. It's just brilliant. And also kids obviously are just great. The things they come out with when they see things through the telescope are amazing, and it makes every night sort of enjoyable, and it sort of drives you every night.
It's really good when you have those things that you know it's going to happen. Like you'll have that reaction. At least one member of the audience are going to do that, which is great. I don't know if you can hear, but we've got a wood. When you're doing a live stream and then like there's a wood chipper outside, people are chopping down trees and throwing it in a wood chipper. So that'll be I usually complain about my bearded dragon making lots of noise, but he's quite quiet today. But there's a wood chipper outside, so if that's what you can hear, folks, that's what that is.
That's it, right? You'll see my camera's wobbling. It's because I've got my two cats are fighting right behind my laptop.
Now, you mentioned this before we started, and I'm really disappointed that they haven't made an appearance on camera yet. I'm sure there's still 10 minutes. There's still a chance.
Yeah, I mean, they're right here. So
there you get it. Something that I really enjoyed when, so I used to work at Glasgow Science Centre. Oh, there we go.
There we go. There's one.
And what is that beautiful beautiful feline's name?
Mary. So Mary
Mary.
and Pippin,
Oh, amazing. Absolutely love it.
of
That is
course.
perfect. Something that I really enjoyed when I was at Glasgow Science Centre was we had our digital planetarium, which is obviously different to being like live looking at stars outside. But whenever you would, I never presented in there, but I would go and watch like shows. And when you were in with a like a public audience, and you'd get everyone to shut their eyes before you change from light pollution to no light pollution, and the reaction from them all, you could guarantee you're going to get like a big gasp and a wow. And I imagine that's similar to what it's like when you show someone something in the sky for the first time they've never seen before.
It is, even when so every now and then it happens, but like there's an event that times perfectly with like when night falls in. So people like go into the building and it'll still be a bit light outside and you won't be able to see much. But then when they come out of the building after an introduction, it's dark. They can see the Milky Way, they can see Andromeda. And it's just, those are always the best nights in a sense, because it's just the change between the two. But about planetariums, we've got, as part of like our school's office, like we go into schools and everything, and what we do is we take a planetarium, or we usually would, and it gets always, it's just every kid's like favorite thing when we bring it in. It's like this big inflatable thing, and they get to like crawl inside and look up, and we'll turn it from day to night, and it's always great fun, actually.
They're always just some of the like the most popular things whenever I've like been to events and you have a planetarium or you have some sort of observatory, like they're always the things that people are queuing to get to. They want to go and see that. So there's just this sort of kind of, as you said earlier, everyone's excited by it, like universal interest in the sky above us because it's so accessible.
Yeah, definitely. And even so, when I was at university, I was helping out with like a science gala event for kids, and somebody had an inflatable planetarium that they were showing. And even like us, even everybody who was helping out, all the university students, towards the end of the event, we were like, can we go in a planetarium? Can we go and sit in one of the shows? And they were like, yeah, I guess so, if you really want. And so it was a bunch of it was some like 3-4-year-old kids and then a whole bunch of like university students just sort of sitting up, and got the same reaction out of everyone, to be honest.
Yeah, they're acting like 3 or 4-year-old kids, even if they're not like actually 3 or 4-year-old kids. Yeah, there is just something about it that everyone, it's like dinosaurs in space. Those are the two things that generally most people have an interest in. We're getting very close to the end. Like this just flies by. What I always like to ask people who are actively involved in science communication is we get a lot of people watching who are interested in getting into SciComm. So what sorts of top tips would you have for someone who was interested in getting into science communication?
I think my main tip I would give to people is take every opportunity, even if it doesn't directly align with what you think you want to do, because there's something in it that you'll be able to sort of like swing your way. So, for example, like as I mentioned earlier, there's not an awful lot of science communication jobs sort of openly available for like physics and maths and stuff like that. But if you can find something that's adjacent, so for example, if it's working at a museum that has like a section on like even space travel and stuff like that, and you can swing it your way. You can sort of push it towards what you want it to be once you're in there, once you've got that foot in the door. And yeah, just take every opportunity you can and keep putting yourself out there. Like even if you think you're not getting anywhere, someone somewhere is seeing it.
No, on that last point, 100% agree. Like people definitely are watching what other people are doing and seeing the great stuff that's going on out there. We've had a comment come in, which is space is cool and it's just there every night above us. And as mentioned about like widening out who's watching. Hi from Australia. Hello. That's really awesome to have you like watching the show, Marie. Thank you so much for that. And that kind of brings us on to like that's the really nice thing about the night sky is that we're looking at a sky above us that is going to be different to what someone in Australia is looking at.
Yeah,
I've understood it right.
yeah, definitely. And I'm so jealous of people because you get so many cool things in the southern celestial hemisphere, but we never see. You get all the best bits of the Milky Way in the southern celestial hemisphere.
Oh, what do they get that we don't?
So like the Magellanic Clouds are really cool, and we don't get to see them. And there's a bunch of like fun constellations that you never get to see. And I'd love to go. I've got to head somewhere south at some point just to see it all.
Marie agrees absolutely. I never like. It is weird when you think that the Southern Cross as well. Is that like our night? Is that like our North Star, but something different?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a cross, and it's how you identify sort of south and the southerly direction when you're in the south, because you don't have a south star at the moment anyway.
Mm. Oh, that's really, it's a bit mind blowing when you think about how these things are so different depending on where in the world you are.
Yeah.
Right, we're coming towards the end. Thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Where can people find out more about you and what you got up to?
So I'm trying to become more active on Twitter. It's something I'm trying to push myself to doing because it gets me out there a bit more. But you can follow the Kyoto Observatory page on Facebook or on Twitter or anything like that, and you'll see all the things we do. So we post about events, we'll post about live streams that we do. And you can also, if you think you want to come up to the observatory and you think you can get up, we are starting to run events again from, well, hopefully from the 17th. We're waiting to see whether or not that gets confirmed on the 10th. But you can go to the website and you can have a look at the events we offer and you can book on.
So I was trying to be really sneaky and like use the time that you were talking to get like handles and stuff together, and that's why I'm still just talking over it because I'm still doing it and like it's so seamless, isn't it? But there is where you can follow Ellie on Twitter and the Kyoto Observatory on Twitter, which is where I expect most people are watching. I've had one more comment. Marie saying, thank you. It's been great. It has been. Thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you very much.
I'm sad we didn't get to see Pippin, but like really great names for cats. Huge Lord of the Rings fan, so I really appreciate that.
He looks exactly the same as Mary, except he's a bit fatter. So
that kind of works, like for Merry and Pippin, like to be honest. So, thank you again. I'm going to use the powers that I have to kind of shove you out the room. But thank you for coming.
Okay.
Another really quick half an hour. Really cool to talk about astronomy and looking up into the night sky. It's something that I really miss about going to events. And like before lockdown, I was working in a science center, so I could go and watch planetarium shows. And I can't wait to get back to doing that sort of thing. Thank you so much, folks, to those of you who've been watching today. It's been an absolute delight to have had you watching. We're going to be back again on Thursday. I would say we're going to be back. I'm not going to be back on Thursday. We're going to have a guest host. So Alex Holmes is going to step into the host seat for the night. And we'll be back at 6 p.m. BST on Thursday evening. Where I expect we're going to be talking about maths and about crafting. It's going to be really good fun. I'll otherwise be back next Tuesday at 12 p.m. I think. We'll send you information about what's going on. Thank you so much, folks, for coming to join us today. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you.